All right, so today we're going to be taking what we like to call a deep dive, exploring how spiritual insights can help us make sense of some of the challenges we see in the world around us.
Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, I think it'll be really insightful, especially with the specific Murli you brought from March 23rd, 2025, and the news about some pretty concerning stuff happening in the education system.
I think those two sources together are going to make this a very powerful deep dive. We're going to see how spiritual principles could actually offer a different perspective on those difficulties. And maybe, just maybe, point towards solutions.
Let's jump right in then, shall
Let's
we?
do it.
The Murli starts off with this really striking point. It says, uplift yourself and also uplift those who defame you. Now, when you first read that, what was your initial reaction? What kind of life lesson popped out at you?
Well, the thing that immediately stood out to me is this idea of resilience. Not just personal resilience, like staying strong in the face of criticism, but something more proactive, like choosing to lift others up, even when they're being negative towards us. It's kind of counterintuitive, you know?
It is. It's not the natural response, right? You want to defend yourself, push back.
Exactly. But the Murli is suggesting a different approach. And I think especially for you, with your focus on navigating different perspectives and finding common ground, this really resonates. It's about maintaining that inner equilibrium, extending goodwill, even when it's tough.
I see what you mean. And thinking about the issues in education that we're seeing, it makes you wonder if this principle has been overlooked. There's all this talk about pressure, exploitation, even some pretty disturbing incidents.
You're right. It's like if institutions or even individuals within the system get defensive or retaliatory when they face criticism, it just escalates the negativity. Maybe they're trying to protect their image or they dismiss legitimate concerns.
Instead of taking that step back and saying, okay, how can we actually elevate this situation? How can we uplift even those who are pointing out flaws?
Exactly. It becomes about winning, not about actual improvement or creating a positive environment for everyone involved.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The next point in the Murli is become full of all powers and all virtues and a bestower of respect. What's the core message you take away from that for, living our lives?
It's like a roadmap for personal development. It's saying, hey, we need to actively cultivate our inherent strengths, our spiritual powers. We need to nurture those positive qualities, the virtues. But it doesn't end there. It links this inner work to how we interact with others. We're supposed to be bestowers of respect.
I'm curious about how that plays out, being a bestower of respect.
Sure.
What does that actually look like in everyday life?
Well, think about someone like Father Brahma. He's often mentioned in the Murli, and one of his defining characteristics was his consistent respect for everyone. No matter who they were, what their background was, he treated them with dignity.
And that respect became a huge part of his legacy, didn't it?
Absolutely. It wasn't just about his own inner development. It radiated outwards and influenced everyone he interacted with. Now, think about the education system and those challenges we're talking about. A lack of holistic learning, this intense pressure on students to perform.
Like kids are just seen as numbers, as statistics.
Exactly. And if the system or certain individuals within it prioritize academic results, rankings, and maybe even profit at the expense of a student's well-being, their sense of self-worth, then it's like they've forgotten that principle of being a bestower of respect.
It's like the focus shifts to achievements, not the person.
You got it. And that's where we see things like those incidents where students break down under pressure. It's tragic. They're not being seen as individuals deserving of respect. They're just cogs in a machine.
It's heartbreaking. So the Murli then shifts to this idea of love for the Father and powers. And it links that love to inheriting spiritual powers and detaching from negativity. Even as someone interprets the Father in a more universal sense, how do we apply this to our daily struggles?
It's about connecting to something bigger than ourselves, finding that source of strength and perspective that helps us through challenges, whether you call it the Father, a higher power, the universe, or something else. It's that feeling of being supported, guided, loved unconditionally.
It's interesting because you brought up the idea of detachment, and it's something I struggle with. How does that connection help us detach from all the negativity that can just drag us down?
Think of it like an anchor. When we're feeling overwhelmed by negative emotions, anxieties, or just the ups and downs of life, that connection acts as a stabilizing force. It reminds us that we're not alone, that there's a bigger picture. It gives us the strength to step back, to observe, and to choose how we respond instead of just reacting.
It's like having that inner compass to guide you.
That's a great way to put it. It's not about ignoring the challenges or pretending they don't exist, but about facing them with greater clarity and resilience.
I like that. The next point is quite powerful, and it's phrased as a question. having a right to all powers. Bhakdada asks if we constantly experience and access those spiritual powers as our inheritance, like an order that's immediately obeyed. What's the key takeaway for us in that question?
He's really challenging us to examine our sense of inner authority. Do we truly believe we have access to those powers, to those inner resources, in any situation? The Murli even uses the analogy of, yes, my lord, I am present, to illustrate that immediate and unwavering recognition of our inherent abilities.
So that sense of knowing I've got this no matter what comes my way.
Exactly. And the life lesson here is about self-awareness. Are we consistently tapping into those powers, or do we let ourselves feel powerless in certain situations? The Murli uses the example of the power to accommodate. Sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. It highlights the inconsistency in our own awareness and utilization of those inner resources.
It's that fluctuation, that inner battle we all face. Okay, so how do we bridge that gap? The Murli offers the method, following Srimad, divine guidance, and it says that consistently adhering to it is the key to unlocking those powers, while inconsistency leads to dependence. How do we translate that idea of divine guidance into something practical in our lives?
It's about aligning ourselves with the highest principles that resonate within us. Those principles of ethics, compassion, wisdom, whatever form they take for you. It's about making conscious choices that reflect those values, that jihazir, that constant willingness to be guided by something greater.
So it's not just about blindly following rules, it's about living with intention.
You got it. And the life lesson here is about the cumulative effect of those choices. When we consistently act in accordance with those principles, we cultivate a strong inner foundation. It's like building a muscle. The more we exercise it, the stronger it gets. On the other hand, when we're inconsistent, we tend to rely on external validation, quick fixes, things that don't address the root cause.
So it's about cultivating that inner strength rather than seeking external crutches. The Murli then talks about aiming to be equal to the Father. Not a number, of course, but in terms of having all powers, virtues, an equal stage, and victory over those adverse situations. Why is this aspiration so significant in our journey?
It sets a clear direction for personal growth, not just for achieving some external benchmark or status. It's about refining our inner being, continuously striving to embody those qualities of the Father. It's not about reaching a destination, it's about the journey itself.
I see it as a process of becoming, of constantly evolving.
Precisely. And the life lesson here is about embracing self-improvement and self-awareness. It encourages us to constantly ask ourselves, do we possess those powers? Are we embodying those virtues? Have we achieved an inner state of stability? Can we face challenges with grace and resilience? Those are the markers of progress, not external achievements.
It's like that continuous self-assessment, seeing where we are on that path. But Murli then delves into the balance of self-respect and respect for others, explaining how a truly victorious state requires both. Why is this balance so crucial?
This point beautifully illustrates the interconnectedness of our inner and outer worlds. True self-respect isn't about arrogance or self-importance. It's about recognizing our own inherent worth, which naturally leads to valuing and respecting others.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. And the life lesson here is that these two aspects are mutually reinforcing. When we genuinely respect ourselves, we treat others with respect, and receiving that respect from others, in turn, strengthens our own self-respect. It creates a beautiful cycle of positive energy.
It highlights how respect is a two-way street, not just something we demand, but something we cultivate through our own actions. The Murli then circles back to the idea of uplifting everyone, even defamers, emphasizing its transformative power. Why is this concept so important to reiterate?
It's a reminder that our spiritual growth is not just about our own individual progress, but about extending that positivity outwards. It's about seeing the good in others, even when they're behaving badly.
That's a tough one, isn't it? It's easy to get caught up in the negativity and respond in kind.
It is, but the Murli challenges us to break that cycle. By choosing to uplift even those who defame us, we not only contribute to their potential transformation, but we elevate our own spiritual state as well. It's a powerful act of transcendence.
It's like taking the high road, even when it's tempting to get dragged into the mud. Finally, the Murli emphasizes the speed of becoming perfect, urging us to ramp up our efforts and make preparations. What's the underlying message there?
It injects a sense of urgency and purpose into our spiritual journey. It's a reminder that time is precious and that we need to be diligent in our efforts towards self-improvement.
It's like, don't wait, start now.
Exactly. And the life lesson here is about conscious and consistent effort. Spiritual growth is not a passive process. It requires dedication, discipline, and a willingness to push ourselves beyond our comfort zones. It's a call to action, a reminder that we have the power to shape our destiny, both individually and collectively.
So how do these Murli points, these spiritual principles, connect to the very real challenges we're seeing in the education system? If we were to apply these teachings, how might things look different?
Imagine an education system where bestowing respect was at the forefront, where each student's inherent worth and potential were recognized and valued, and the focus wasn't solely on academic achievement, but on holistic development. The intense pressure, the obsession with rankings, that might ease up if respect was truly the driving force.
And what about those inner powers and virtues? How would cultivating those impact the way we approach education?
It would be a game changer. Imagine an environment where students were encouraged to develop their inner resilience, their love of learning, their ethical compass. Not just prepping for exams, but actually equipping them with the tools they need to navigate the complexities of life.
And even dealing with criticism, with those who might defame the system.
That's where that principle of uplifting even our critics comes in. If the education system embraced feedback, learned from its mistakes, and sought to continuously improve, imagine how much more effective it could be.
It's like shifting from a defensive posture to one of growth and evolution.
And finally, think about divine guidance, about those higher principles we talked about. If decisions within the education system were made with the well-being of the students as the top priority, if those decisions were guided by ethics, compassion, and a genuine desire to serve, that would fundamentally transform the landscape.
It's about aligning actions with values, putting the needs of the children first.
Exactly. And that's where real progress lies. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways for you, the things that really stand out? The main takeaway for me is that these spiritual principles aren't just abstract concepts. They offer a practical and profound guide for navigating the challenges we face, both individually and as a society. The Murli's emphasis on self-upliftment, bestowing respect, cultivating inner strength, and acting with ethical awareness provides a powerful framework for creating systems and environments that foster well-being, growth, and positive change. And when those principles are ignored, that's when we see imbalance, negativity, and even harm.
It's a lot to think about. It's not just about personal growth, but about how we shape the world around us.
You got it.
So, for all of you listening out there, as you go about your day, consider how these principles of respect and inner strength can guide your interactions, your choices, and your contributions to the world. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.